Hi everyone. Are we recording? Yes, we're recording. I have to check first of all.
Yes, there is a little red dot is appearing.
Yeah, we're just grannies, so we're learning about how to do all this stuff. So bear with us. We're grannies speaking up for truth and freedom and health, freedom of health, freedom, and taking care of our children and our grandchildren. So, wow, what a time we're in.
Yeah.
So I know it's past the 6th of January, and the tradition is that you take your Christmas tree down on the 6th of January. But I've still got my lovely tree here because I never got to enjoy it with my family for Christmas. And that made me really sad. And it's so dark and so cold outside that it lifts my spirits to have the tree there. But what's amazing is that we're actually transitioning now. We've passed the Christmas, we've passed the midwinter, and we're transitioning into spring. And I found these lovely daffodils.
Beautiful. Aren't they beautiful? They bring so much light, just like you.
They're completely...
I love that. And you've got daffodils. And look what I've got. I've got the most amazing roses from the rose bed. It was snowing here, so I ended up picking the last roses. And they're just opening.
That's incredible.
And they smell wonderful.
I can't believe that you got roses out of your snowy garden. That's so
magic. It's the magic of the Source Center.
Yeah, well done. Yeah. Well, I'm anticipating having roses for next year. I went out into the bitter cold and I bought 5 beautiful perfumed roses, and I've cleared the whole front of my bed in the front of my house, and I aim to have beautiful perfumed roses in the center. I haven't dug the holes for them. I need some well-rotted horse manure, so I'm wondering whether we can dig up some of that.
Wonderful. I'm so happy to know that you've done that. It's so resourcing and something to look forward to in 2021, because we really need to sow some seeds. I mean, with the midwinter solstice, we really shifted into a totally new, we took a huge giant step as we move into the age of Aquarius and the opening of the heart. And so having planted those roses is absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, they're being planted. I haven't managed it yet, but you know, this is a process. We are in a process. We're in a huge process of clearing stuff away, clearing the dead away, clearing the ground, making it fresh, planting so that the new growth can come up.
That's beautiful. And I really feel it's important not only to sow seeds, but as well to tend the garden and tend your inner garden too.
Yeah, there's been a lot of that going on, tending.
Yeah, so as a mother and a grandmother and one of the elders, I've been processing a tremendous amount of information coming through me in the last few weeks. Well, it's been since I was a child, I've been processing, but much more recently, because I have had the insight through some of my major profound dreams of experimentation being done on children and upon humanity. And I was just researching some threads, some this morning and yesterday that came through. So my way of working, my way of living is I get downloads that I like it or not. And it's just like I get given strands. So today I was given a strand about the young German soldiers marching. And how did they manage to march day and night on foot, without sleep, without drink, without food? Well, this is called chemical warfare. There is a product that was discovered, and it's called the methamphetamine, which was being used as a doping product. So the young soldiers were taking this drug, and there was at first they were giving them one, and the name was that they came under was the peristine. But little by little, what happened is they became totally addicted to that, and it no longer worked the same way. So then they ended up having 2 and 3 and 4. And then what happened, because they became addicted, they shifted into that. They put cocaine and morphine. So the young people became totally addicted. So we're talking about trauma of the body. I'm talking about what the government of that country did in order to win that war, which is really a sad, sad strand. And that took me to what is going on right now about the same need from big, big pharma and big, big whatever, which we're part of. I'm not judging. I am part of that. Is once again experimenting on our bodies. And that made me feel very sad as regard being a mother and being a grandmother. So that's one big piece I picked up this morning. How using chemicals, we don't know quite yet how they're going to impact our bodies. But this is not even one chemical, this is a nanotechnology. So we're taking it another notch.
Oh, you mean what's been rolled out now?
Yes, because in those wars, they used chlorine as a gas. Now, chlorine is highly toxic, and that's how the Germans breached, I think it was 5 miles into the French, in the trenches. That was the First World War. And they breached by sending gas, toxic gas. Now, young soldiers died, and many were damaged for the rest of their life because of how it impacted their health, those who were at the front. It didn't solve anything. But then they've been using all this, what you call chemical technology with Vietnam and other places. But my question here is, where is our humanity in that? Where is my need to really care? And my grandfather was on the battlefield in the First World War, and he lost 2 of his very young brothers with this same war. And I feel I'm carrying that in my lineage, that memory, and many other memories. So today I just wanted to do this little video with Juliet, my friend, because this came into me. And I thought, in the last war, the Second World War, experimentation was being done on the Jews. And not just on the Jews, on the intellectuals, on the gypsies. They were being experimented. And no one did anything. Nobody did much of anything, like saying, this is really dangerous. What are you doing? Well, these are people.
I think the question here is as this happens now, this same rollout yet again.
It is. That is why I'm concerned. I'm really, as a mother and a grandmother, I am going through grief, and my chest feels quite, I've got heat.
Well, it's huge. There's so much here to consider on so many different levels. And it's like, how did the Jews ever get onto the trains to go to the concentration?
Exactly. And that's the piece, that is the piece where Europe knew something was going on. And the pressure was so great that they did not denounce, they didn't stop it. And this is something that's rolling out again. People are in denial, and those who are not in denial that something is happening were being absolutely closed out of our families. How, we're being told this is not true. This can't be true.
I know it's it's such a complex, there are so many strands, like why are people not seeing what's happening?
Yeah.
And why is it when you try to share to your loved ones what's happening that they can't hear? So I think,
no, they can't.
I mean, there's different components here. One, you've mentioned about the First World War and the fact that we're carrying that. Well, we haven't begun to process the collective trauma around that. So it's this collective trauma, all these horrific things that have happened that we haven't really looked at, or we haven't acknowledged, or we're completely numb to, but nonetheless it's there in the collective field, and it's in our psyche. So what the primitive brain does when there's things that are too difficult to handle is it numbs it out. So there's this huge numbing going on. That's the numbing in our collective trauma. And alongside that, when you say, where is our humanity? Well, our humanity is here. We are very human, but and now I would be shocked to hear myself saying this. If I went back back in the past a year, I'd be completely shocked that I would say such a thing, because I didn't believe in it. But there are quite definitely satanic forces at work. And it's not about our humanity, it's about the satanic forces at work that are seeking to crush humanity.
So they're using humanity, they're using different people, they're targeting certain people, really, who are just very traumatized or differently traumatized. But I agree with you, I did mention that in one of my other videos, we still have not processed all those collective traumas.
No, we haven't processed. Plus, there's been generations since that First World War. Been generations of indoctrination, social engineering, mind control. That alongside the numbing that happens with the trauma, there's also that we've already been indoctrinated into this kind of what is acceptable to say, or what is acceptable to believe, and what's not. It's like the whole thing with Satanism is, it, from what I understand now, is it inverts everything, turns everything upside down. So what is good, right?
What it does, it creates.
And what is bad is now good, which is what we can see with the legalization of full-term abortion. So this has been legalized in various places. I mean, whoever's listening to this, just check out for yourselves. Don't take anything that I say as truth. Check out for yourself that full-term abortion, I heard about it in New Zealand, but it's also being legalized in certain states in America. And what is that? That is infanticide. That is child murder. So how can something be so turned upside down that child murder is now socially acceptable and legalized? So that's just one of the things that's, when you say, where is our humanity? There's a satanic force at work.
I hear that. But there are millions of light workers and those who are really doing tremendous amount of work. And my sense is that fake, what I call the copy matrix, it has copied. It has played the apprentice sorcerer. And that matrix is most people believe that false matrix to be the true matrix of the divine.
So exactly,
and it is not.
It's not. Sorry. It's a true matrix. And that's why another part of this condition is that this global belief and acceptance of injecting things into people, particularly babies. I think there's 72 of these things now that get injected on the medical schedule to protect against disease, but what's been injected is actually lethal toxins, neurotoxins.
And there has never been so many autistic. I've got friends who are working with autistic children. Even one of my granddaughter is working with autistic young adults.
Again, that's an inversion. It's like those things that are good for health are being told that's bad, and those things that are bad have now been, people have been indoctrinated into believing this is absolutely what you have to do for good.
Exactly.
I mean, it's
Exactly.
crazy. It defies
because
the rational
we are
mind.
we are meant to be really healthy. We are meant to be healthy. We're not meant to be nasty towards each other. So there is a lot of stuff that is still, you know, you spoke about the dark. I'm not talking about here the shadow, my shadow. I'm talking, you know, you're talking about here really very nasty stuff where they implant in us really very awful programs where we just stay in fear and we stay fighting against each other. This is not where it's at. That is not how humanity.
Well, humans are hardwired for connection and relating. Our survival depends upon these trusted relationships. And human beings do not feel safe in isolation. I mean, that is not just something I'm saying. That's the research of, for instance, the word's gone from my mind. Whenever I get kind of wound up, this is a demonstration how the primitive brain, when it gets activated, starts switching off the rational thinking. So it's like suddenly I lose words. I get kind of disturbed by this. But neuroscientists like Dr. Peter Levine talks about this, about we're hardwired for connection. We're hardwired that we need somebody with us to entirely relax, for the parasympathetic nervous system to come down and feel safe. And when we're not connected in that way, we don't feel safe.
So in a way, what's interesting, I was starting with that those young people marching and during the World War II, and they were marching on foot, no sleep, no drink, no food, for 24 hours, day and night. And how did that impact their whole system? And right now, how is what we're going to receive as an injection impact our DNA, impact our neural system, impact our cellular memory, impact our soul, and impact our spirit? And that's something I've been pondering since they've been starting to roll out this program. Because I remember my dad, when he gave me my first injection, I think I was 11. And that's when the Institut Pasteur in France started rolling out their new vaccines. And I didn't walk for 6 months after the injection.
So what happened to you?
I couldn't, my legs started having tremendous pains, like my muscles, something happened to my muscles. And whenever I stood up, I would go into absolute tremendous pain in my legs. So I lied down for months on end, and they checked, and everything was well. So they put it down to my growing, which wasn't my growing, because then I had another vaccination when I was 13, and then I had a near death. So maybe, and I was a very healthy child.
I think knowing how right at this moment people are being deplatformed from all sorts of places for saying particular words, I think it's probably best that you don't say that word.
Did I say it?
Twice. Huh.
Oh dear, oh dear. So thank you for thank you for flagging it out. Maybe we can start.
We can't discuss these things. That there's a whole, a kind of set of words that.
It's fascinating how much of what I have shared before has been completely taken off Facebook or YouTube or Twitter. Whenever I made I make in bracket, I said that word. That has been.
Christina Northrup says it says Maxine rather than the other word. So choose your own version. So for people listening, I guess we have to sound a bit silly and talk in code or something because we don't have a free and open. We're in a police state.
So that's a huge challenge because I spent most of my earlier years not being able to voice. And now, as one of the elders, I am being, again, controlled to be able to share what I'm tracking, what's being downloaded through me that I feel is information of collective trauma. I mean, when I share about these young soldiers, it's collective trauma I'm talking about. It's collective trauma in the field that we are picking up now. It's a density. It's a dense energy within the field.
I think there's such a
grief.
Yeah.
It's grief on the chest. You know, I have friends who will be vaccinated, who will be injected. Sorry. And I've said, it's, you know, I really wish you well. I really do wish you well.
Well, the thing with that, and this is what I posted a lot recently on my page, was about David Martin, and who's the doctor and who's the patent expert. Says, right, I mean, this is another inversion, is that this isn't even one of those things that we can't say. This is a medical instrument to inject pathogens into our cells. Then they're there to program our DNA to create more pathogens. That, he says, that it's predicted that 80% of everyone that receives that injection will then become ill.
I have understood that. So it's how to share that with adults who are in their 70s, who have worked, like in, you know, in government places, who have worked in social media places, who have worked in hospital places, who have worked in the police. You know, it's how to, because everyone, you know, what they say is, well, we get our information. And it's like suddenly they take the rug from under you and you think, well, what information? What is the information? You know, the informed consent. So you are informed in your consent, because according to the code, which I hope I can still say, of Nuremberg, which was following the trial, where many of the people at the end of the war in Germany were trialed, and many did get taken back into pharmaceutical companies and governments.
So you had the Nuremberg trials, and then I think it was the American government and the Russian government actually took a lot of, like, hundreds of those war criminals into their own research teams.
So they never did finish. The trials really did not go the whole way. So many of them are still alive, or their children and grandchildren are still.
That's the foundation of the pharmaceutical companies.
So that's the foundation.
And the behavioral
deviation.
Well, the organizations, the research on how to program people, how to program their minds, like the Behavioral Insights team that is advising our UK government at this point in time, SAGE.
So that's you know, that's going on. That's still going on right now. But the great news, I feel, the positive news, even if 2021 is the year where there are going to be tremendous amount of waking up of humanity. I'm sorry about my voice, but my chest is, I'm having a huge amount of grief. I'm addressing a huge amount of grief right now. 2021 is going to be a waking up of humanity. And I'm hanging on to that, because as that is going to happen, what has been the hijacking of humanity will collapse. And yes, it's going to take time for humanity to find new ways of creating new communities, supporting each other, being in solidarity to each other. And we're going to need to really expand our hearts. What have I got that I can share with others that I don't need. That's going to be the age of Aquarius. With Uranus in Taurus, you know, what are the values that I want to share with others? And what are the values that need to be shared? And definitely what we have of too much, that will not be allowed. Because it means someone will be left out with nothing.
Yeah, and this earth is so abundant, there's no need for anybody to have nothing.
Exactly. And it's like in the Bible, the story of Lazarus, who was the beggar, and he went to the rich table, and the rich man just threw some crumbs to him. And yet Lazarus raises from the dead because he's such a divine-hearted being. So it's a profound understanding. We're being initiated in the power of the heart and to hold compassion. Because I have tremendous compassion as I remember my great-grandfather's younger brothers, who I never knew. And my grandfather who had such heart pain. And his mother who died of heartbroken because she lost two of her beloveds. She died of a broken heart. Oh. And so many people right now are just on the edge.
Yeah.
But what's beautiful, the light is rising. The rainbow serpent is awake. And we have our third eye is opening. So we remember whom we are born to be. So instead of going with tremendous amount of fear, so we tend to compromise ourselves. We have nothing to lose right now. They're putting out the whole, it's like being in front of tanks, warheads. They're all out there. They've put all the ammunitions out in front of us. And they're saying, this is what we're going to roll out. And in France now, they're rolling out, this is what I was reading yesterday, is they're going to roll out the passport. So if you want to go on a train, if you want to go in a plane, if you want to go on a bus or an underground, you're going to have your passport. And your passport will only be given to you if you go with a vaccine. Now, if this vaccine,
that word,
this injection, if this injection was so amazingly wonderful, why would we need to have such huge amount of pressure, collective pressure, with only one sound of the bell, only one sound of the bell, that it's going to transform humanity? Well, it isn't going to change anything as regard you having flu, because you will still have it. But what
doesn't change anything? It doesn't stop the passing on. It doesn't stop infection.
No.
It doesn't prevent you passing it on. That's written on.
No, and it doesn't prevent you having it, except you will not have maybe so many snuffles.
Exactly.
But you will need to do another one of those we can't name, 6 months, every 6 months. Now, let's think about that. That's a wonderful gold mine, isn't it? Every 6 months, you go to the tap, you turn the tap, and you get money coming in.
Oh,
and what's wonderful, you have no liability. Nobody can do anything.
No.
And that makes me think, I can sue somebody if I get poisoned. I go and buy something in a shop and I get sick. If I've kept that packet of food, I go back to the shop, Waitrose, Sainsbury, Tesco, whatever, and I have my medical certificate proving that this is what that did to my body. Sainsbury, Waitrose, Tesco, whatever, will reimburse me and will go further, not to lose me as their customer. This is something else, because they are sowing the branch upon which they are standing, because through that, whatever it is that they're putting into you, getting better at this, people are going to die and people are not going to be able to work.
And they can't sue the company. They've got no liability.
Yes,
And
but
they
as
never
people
have.
are going to die and people are going to be very, very ill.
Yeah. Well, I was just...
They will no longer have that income, but they will have a different income through the illnesses.
Absolutely.
So it's a win-win both ways. And when we have a win-win, that's how the dark forces, the satanic forces, that's how they work. They always manage to go round the back way and never to take any responsibility. This is how satanic or Luciferian energies work. So they never get caught. So they will perpetuate their evil by using somebody else or getting it through somebody else. So they're not in the direct line. It's fascinating, isn't it? And both ways, they are winners because they never take responsibility. So we are seeing that because they are exempt and they're asking you to do a consent. So by misinforming you, they're going to get your consent anyway. But if you're informed, I doubt if you will get your consent or give it. Does that make sense? It's a very important point here, because that is how the evil works. They never take responsibility, so they're not answerable in the face of the divine law of one. They're not breaking the divine law. If you give your consent without being fully conscious and informed, you're still giving your consent.
Mm.
So they are winning. And that is why on media, we're only hearing one sound of the bell. Exactly. This is good for you. This is going to be the cure for what has been going on the last few years, last year, right? But the great thing is what somebody shared recently is on the 2nd of November, one of the firms had already ordered from Germany millions of little glass containers, which could take minus 100 degrees. So that they knew before even the whatever affected our lungs and made us feel sick, they had already ordered those millions of little bottles to put in that little injection.
There is
and
so
that's corruption.
Yeah, there is, for anybody, like when you hear something, for who's listening here, when you hear something and it sounds incredible and you want to immediately say, oh, well, that's conspiracy theory. This idea of conspiracy theory is a terminology put out, I think, by the CIA in order to push something away. So whenever you get that thought, oh, that's conspiracy, just pause for a moment, stop and start researching. Because even though Google, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram are censoring and banning like crazy, there are alternative research sites, and there is so much information now that you can research these things. It's staring.
You might need to go on BitChute. Is it BitChute?
BitChute, Parler, the new YouTube, Gab, Telegram. And then browsers, DuckDuckGo. There is an enormous amount of information. There are millions and millions of people at this time that are researching and posting information. It's all there in plain sight.
Yeah, that's an important point that you said, Juliet, because it really matters. We, both of us, are sharing, but we have been doing our own research. And I come from a medical family, so my information is even what I was sharing earlier on. The methamphetamine, my father used to talk about this because my father and mother were in wartime. So this information I'm bringing through is something that I had when I was being carried by my mother and genetic, from my father. And that my grandfather was in the First World War and their grandparents too. So this is not, we each need to research. But be aware that if you go with a normal main media, you will be totally sidetracked onto the main media information that they want you to be adopting is the word.
Because that is the condition, and that's the conditioning that we've been having for the last 3 generations, particularly in England through the BBC, which everybody, it's like, what's the word? It's the centerpiece of an English household is to listen to the BBC or to read the Times newspaper or the Mirror or the Guardian. And that's where all the information is coming through at you, which is not to be trusted. But it's totally trusted. But if it was really trustable, why wasn't Jimmy Savile, the paedophile, for instance, why wasn't he, that was working for the BBC, why wasn't he dealt with? Because he wasn't.
Why wasn't he censored? Yeah.
Why wasn't he stopped?
I agree, because he always used to give me the creep. Yeah, and I was a young mother then with 5 children, and I used to say, we're not watching that. So it's fascinating. So if you listen to your guts, what do your guts tell you? Because our body always speaks truth. If we just dare to listen to our inner guts, once we start dealing with our own trauma, your guts and my guts and Juliet's guts, they speak truth. But we have been taught you must not listen to your guts, and you must listen to what's in the collective field. That might be totally against your own good. And this is my concern, and Juliet's concern, and many others I know. And yes, and as a light worker, I have no intention of changing your choice. But my intention is to make sure I share as much information as I can. And then it's up to you to check that information for yourself. Yeah. I'm sorry.
And I just want to just to mention as well how difficult, once you start to understand what's really going on, how difficult it is then to share to other people.
Yeah.
And I've been talking about this for months now, how we've been losing our friends, how we've been cut off from our families, because as we begin to awaken with this information and now adopt a different mindset, a different understanding, those people, particularly those people that have known us in a particular way, is we try to give an alternative perspective, then they reject that, they push back against you, they don't want to be disturbed. I mean, it gives so much cognitive dissonance to have their own belief system turned upside down, and suddenly you're presenting a different information. So that's one thing. But the other thing is that there's some real relational wounding happening now, and this is some of the fallout of this whole present thing that's being rolled out with the lockdowns and so on, is the relational wounding. There's really deep emotional, psychological, relational wounding happening within families and within society. And what does that mean? It means that when you try to speak your truth and your understanding, that you get rejected by your loved ones. And that is extremely painful. That really hurts the heart.
Mm-hmm. And this is very much where I'm at.
Yeah.
Right now. And the only cure is really to resource yourself and to know that the love is still there. And the limit is there's still, well, for me, and my understanding is the limit is they're still trapped in what has been inverted for them to believe that that is reality. That is the true reality. And we are needing to be rescued from the fake reality, which in fact is the divine law of one, is I do no harm. So for me, if I tomorrow have to have that stuff put into my body, I will be done harm. And that is totally against the caduceus and the Hippocrates pledge my father took. And I have taken it too, as an alternative healer, you know, choosing alternative healing medicines, trauma healing and shamanic healing and other healing. So it's fascinating how we are totally turning all this upside down. And there's a tremendous amount of denial, like when I did the training with Elizabeth Kluber-Ross, who was really highly challenged then, it's just the first stage is real total denial. There's a denial. This can't be. This really can't be. You must be totally mad, MaBee, you know. And at times I even think, well, maybe I am. You know, maybe I am losing my marbles. And yet my guts, my heart and my soul and the transmissions I have say no. This is an absolute alignment with everything that you have been seeing and being gifted since you were a child. Experimentation done upon humanity.
Yeah.
On this planet Earth. I'm not talking about other dimensions right now. So we need to ponder on that and how to deal with our hearts.
Yeah, that's really important, because as light workers, as grandmothers and mothers, being deeply, deeply concerned around what's happening.
Yeah.
And it's a bit like seeing your child in the street and there's a huge truck coming towards them, about to kill them, and you're saying, watch out. And they're saying, don't tell me what to do.
That's exactly it.
And
that's exactly, it's like a reflex. And I've had enough, because they've been completely watching media for the last year and a bit. They've been listening to news about numbers, and in brackets, check out those numbers. Check out those numbers, right? Those deaths. This year, there has not been more death in 2020 than the year before. To check out what is really rolling out. And as I'm a bit out of breath with having done some work around missing children and tracking the field of all these mothers and families and grandmothers, how do they feel for the rest of their life, having missed, having lost the child they gave birth to, not knowing? It's the not knowing that is the greatest trauma. If you lose a friend dies, and you don't know, you can't say goodbye to them. And I've been in that. I lost my best friend 2 years ago, and I did not or could not go and say goodbye to her. So it leaves you with a sense of unfinished relationship. And then you're having to go deeper and pick up the fragments and bring them back into this beautiful bouquet of flowers. And little by little, you manage to start healing that place where you couldn't be with your loved ones. And I know many, many people right now cannot be with their loved ones as they pass away. So this is a program that should never happen. This is why I was sharing earlier on about the dehumanization. It's a dark program. It's an evil program. We're not meant to be doing that. We're meant to be relating to each other. So for the last 2 weeks and 3 weeks, because I have been very awarely conscious of the hundreds of thousands of children that disappear every year, just in Europe. Where do these children go? What happens to their parents? How do their grandparents feel? And why is it that we, as a collective mass, with collective trauma, how is it that we are not looking at that right now? This should be a priority on all the medias, on BBC News, ITV News, Arte, French News, Italian News. What's happening to those children? And why is it not being covered? Ponder on that, because that's a very big piece. And as we move through January, much is going to be revealed, and you better prepare yourself, because you may get wounded by the information that will come out.
Yeah.
So start thinking, if you're a mother, a father, a grandmother, and you watch this very simple video from 2 grandmothers reaching out. All we're doing today is just reaching out with our heart and our humanity. We're just reaching out. Yeah. Sorry, I'm putting back.
I know it's so painful. It's like we've been through such a roller coaster, you and I.
Yeah.
Some days we're positive and we've got energy to reach out and share, and other the rebuffs, the pain, the rejection.
Yeah, and
The isolation.
And not being able to voice, I feel, is one of the greatest wounds. Not being able to voice what's taken place.
The gaslighting.
Yeah, I mean, my father was part of the resistance. So was my grandfather. They had to hide. It's the same thing we're rolling out. I have to hide. I can't hide anymore. So I'm rolling out. Why? Because I've got grandchildren, and worldwide I'm connected. The age of Aquarius is about taking care of global humanity. We are one in the law of the divine. We are one. Whatever happens to me happens to you. So when your child is lost, it's my child that's lost. When you are going to go for that product into your system, it's like it's happening to me.
Yeah, it's very painful. It's agonizing. I just
and yes, it's your choice, but it has a resonance in me because my heart is open and I'm embodied. And the more we embody, the more we feel what's going on in the collective field of trauma. So does that make sense, Juliet?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, I just saw a video that was on Facebook, shared on Facebook of, sorry, I'm a bit distressed now talking about these things, but Shauna Keln, I think, who is working in the healthcare industry in some way, but she's just taken, like thousands of people now have just had this injection, and this video I just saw of her is like uncontrollable spasms in her body.
Oh,
and
dear.
Yeah, I did just share it with you.
Yeah, well, that is why I'm just, I think many of my friends, we are now having physical symptoms, and it's got nothing. I mean, I live on my own with a bird and a cat, and I hardly see anybody unless I go shopping once every fortnight. And yet my friends and I and many others, we are feeling in our bodies, we're feeling what's happening out there.
Yeah, it's really, really distressing. So she posted, like, she's gone back to the doctors and saying, can somebody help me? Can somebody tell me what's going on? Why am I having these convulsions? And that's
Yeah.
posted. So if you look on my Facebook page, it's posted there. And that's not the first that I've heard of this. I've
Yeah.
seen
Yeah.
similar videos. It's really,
Yeah.
really distressing because it attacks the nervous system. It attacks the immune system and the nervous system.
Yeah. Yeah. It what's the word? It compromises the immune system. So it's like it takes over the immune system and you become a factory to make
More pathogens, more of the
pathogens.
thing that you think you're being protected by, because this whole
Yeah.
concept of the V
Yeah.
is that it will protect you against disease. And
Yeah.
been
Yeah.
indoctrinated with that for a few generations now. So
Yeah.
now that they're calling this new product a V,
Yeah, but it isn't.
it absolutely isn't, because according to the legal definition, it doesn't grant any immunity, doesn't give any immunity at all. And
Yeah.
David Martin, who has done a very long expose of this, he's a
Yeah,
patent.
many other epidemiologists have been sharing that too.
Yeah.
So it's rolling out in France.
Yeah,
Sorry.
but just a sec. Because people are indoctrinated with this idea that these V's are protective, but this isn't. But it's called that. It's called one. So to people's minds, it is. It's helpful, but it's absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, but they have to call it that, because if they don't call it that, they can't roll it out. So this is where another win-win. And that's sad. But they will not win. They will not win me. I'm sure they will not win you.
No,
And whoever wishes to share.
but it's very distressing.
If this video doesn't get deleted, because this morning both of us were feeling, well, I'm just going through a lot, and so is my lovely Juliet. I mean, going through a lot is not really, it's just physically I'm processing a tremendous amount of grief. Because, yeah, I hardly speak to my family, because they too are dealing with their own trauma. And now having been locked down again, much more than I've ever been, they've already lost their jobs. So the next stage is, what are they going to lose next? So that's going to have an impact on their health. And me being here in another country, I have to stay very calm, very grounded, very much on a, higher frequencies, higher radiance, as this being of light. And that's not always easy,
No,
is it?
I was listening last night to 4 people on a show, Magenta Pixie,
Yeah.
Rebecca Parks and Simon Parks and one other. Sorry, I can't remember your name if you're watching this. But they all said that it's not easy. It's like you could look at us and think, oh, well, they've got it, they've got it sorted. They're able to speak and they're sharing and things like that. But everything that we do causes us disturbance.
And not only that, but we are getting attacked. I get a lot of comments, which are quite charged. There's some comments which can be quite charged. Yes. So it's hard then to relate to that. So you don't go with duality. You don't shut that person out. But you see, I really hear your point of view, and that's okay for me. But I still need maybe to hear that the piped piper, when he was playing his flute, his gift was to rid the whole city of the rats, which had created disease and death and all sorts of things. So it was clearing. So the piped piper task. So here, what is the task of the pipe piper? Maybe it is to clear the
to clear
the swamps.
to clear the swamps, to clear
The swamps.
evil.
And the piper was to clear the rats. It's the same. When the rats get too many, they spread disease. And it's interesting that the rats, as they spread disease now, have created, that's the win-win, have created what they're going to give us to clear whatever disease that they created in the first place. And that's their win-win both ways.
Absolutely. But
and that's my tracking at a much higher level when I say that.
Yeah, yeah. I just want to say to everyone.
Closing.
No, we're not closing yet, but we could talk for hours, couldn't we? You and I. We do talk for hours. But I just want to say, like, take heart, because as we talk about these things, there are millions of people now who are awake and sharing this information and work in their legal teams at work. There's Robert F. Kennedy, there's Rococo Galetti, who's in...
There is ICANN too. There are many, many, many court cases in every country. Be aware there are tremendous amount of court cases who will reach their targets.
Yeah.
Right now they've been rejected, but more and more millions, hundreds of thousands of people are signing. And for this breach of our human rights, for this breach of the Code of Nuremberg, which is do no harm, and you have to give your full informed consent. So if you're not giving your full informed consent, there is a breach of the divine law, which is the right to breathe and the right to being in this body as this light being, as the law of one.
Yes.
We are on earth for something magic, and this is a magic time, isn't it?
It's absolutely magical. I mean, this is incredible, the transformation that's happening, and this, like, we're all rising up against these satanic forces, these dark forces at this point in time.
Yeah.
And although
the more of us work with our own shadows, like saying, okay, how is it that I'm sending negative thought forms or judgments or being very abusive physically, emotionally, mentally, or verbally to somebody or to a group? Let's take that back. That has no room now. We have to really care for what we put. What is it that we co-create? Well, I want to co-create something absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
And peaceful and caring and safe. I want you, my friend, to be able to feel safe enough that you can share with me how you're feeling.
So please, write in the comments underneath, if any of this touches your heart or you want to reach out to us, please write to us. That we're all here together, we're all working together. And for me, it's like my conscience would not stand for me not to be doing something, even though it's really fearful and I get really upset and sometimes I cry and sometimes I get triggered into my worst pain and trauma patterns of rejection. It's still like I'm on fire with wanting to bring out the truth. I'm on fire. Like this is what I've incarnated for at this time. To actually stand up and to support the light moving through this planet and lifting off the darkness.
Yeah. And the same for me. This is why today, in spite of feeling chesty, and having cancelled, I was meant to go and have food and lunch. I'd prepared a coffee tiramisu, which is in the fridge, and I haven't taken it because I'm quite chesty. So, yes, these are tremendously hopeful time. And we just need to hang on for a bit longer as more and more of us are waking up. It is our task to wake up. There is no one out there going to rescue us, even if they will help us. If we ask, if we pray in our meditations or in our prayers, they will help us. But we have to do our work.
Yeah, we have
and our work is to be supportive to each other at this time when we are really in the mid-dark of winter. That's a time when we really need to address, where did I betray Mother Earth? How have I betrayed Mother Earth? In this lifetime, another lifetime. And instead of being judgmental, let's hold compassion for ourselves. Let's hold compassion. And there's non-judgment. And we don't even need to do the Ho'oponopono if we are in the divine light, because the divine holds absolute compassion for every part of us. And that's a gift. So on this Sunday, the 10th of January 2021, that's the gift I'd like to leave you with, that the divine is compassion.
yeah, yeah.
My friend, I leave you. We're going to leave you with a bunch of daffodil and a beautiful bouquet of roses and the sunlight coming through my window.
Oh, lucky you. It's just like dense mist here. I want to go for a walk, but it's so frosty and cold out there. But I have to go. I have to go out and walk and move my foot.
Well, I have to go out to bring Living Joy back in, my bird. And yes, I wish you well, and namaste to each one of you.
Yeah. Yeah, really wishing you well. And do reach out. We are here to support.
Yes, do reach out.
Yeah, we're completely committed to doing whatever we can to bring through the beautiful, beautiful world that's about to, that is beginning.
It is emerging. It is emerging. We emerged out of the collective cocoon on the 21st of December. Remember, Jupiter and Saturn came conjunct. And that was like, that beautiful star of Bethlehem. So we are being born. And that is just the last part of that birth process. So collectively, this is collectively. Do I care enough? Well, we both care.
Yeah.
And please, like Juliet said, do reach out. No expectations, just reach out. We're there for you. Whatever, we're there. So blessed be.
Yeah, blessings on you all.
Blessings.
Loads of love to you.
Loads of love.